Okay, we can get started now. Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining today. As usual, the session is recorded. I would like to welcome Jacques Lateo, who's the product senior product manager. And if you want to go to the next slide, Jacques, just so I can go through housekeeping.
Sure.
Thank you. Um, as always, these sessions are recorded and then posted to community, so please keep yourselves on mute. If you have a question, you can enter it into the chat or raise your hand or use the raise your hand feature and we will call on you. Um, if we don't get to your questions during the session, we will send a follow-up email with responses to those questions or just put them into the recording blog post that we'll put up. Please, if you can wait for a couple minutes just after the Q&A, we have like a couple of just announcements about upcoming shows, and some other things in community, that we need your help with. So, I will pass this over. Jacques, you can go to the next slide, just to our safe harbor slide really quickly. Um, and um, if you can wait a couple of minutes after the session, that would be great. And I'll pass this over to Jacques for the session on Reltio Identity Builder. Thank you
Hey,
all.
Sarah. So, good morning, afternoon, or evening, everybody. Thank you for joining from wherever you are in the world. Today, we're going to be covering Reltio Identity Builder. I'm excited to talk to you about that. And before we dive into the details, let's just kind of paint a small picture here. So, we're all familiar with the traditional challenges with data and master data management use cases. Things like sparsely populated records and stale records, low quality, low data trust. But in addition to that, today, direct to consumer uh, organizations face another challenge, right? Our digitally empowered consumers are becoming increasingly difficult to know and follow. So typically, prospects guard their privacy until they earn a brand's trust. We see this with things like mailing lists and email accounts used for spam purposes, aliases, and sharing minimal bits of information whenever they're being engaged, right? In addition to that, life events create drift, data drift, and drift in identity. It's not always easy to follow people as they navigate through life and move houses across states or countries, in this case, states. And then, in addition to that, we also are aware of malicious actors, perhaps using multiple personas or aliases to make it even harder for us to identify the same individual, and in some cases used, for fraudulent purposes. And what this leads to, from a data perspective, and an image you're probably familiar with within your MDM solution or customer tenant, is that we end up with a lot of fragmented or incomplete profiles that lack common attribution. So in this case, I have three profiles of a Johnny Smith, a John Smith, and a John Smith, with variations in spelling. We have different addresses, emails, and phones. And these typically tend to live as singletons, isolated. There's not enough data there to match and merge and confidently say that these are, in fact, the same individual. We have no idea at this point. And if we visualize those three records in a more conducive manner to to matching here and easier on our eyes, I have the three records: record A, record B, and record C. I have variations on the first name: a Johnny, a John, and a John, spelled differently. I have a Florida address, I have a New Jersey address, and I have no address on the third record. When it comes to email, I have a Yahoo address, no email address on the second record, and I have a business address on the third record. If I look at phone numbers, I have a Florida number, a New Jersey number, and there's no phone number on the third record. So in this scenario, using traditional match rules or matching capabilities, whether it's deterministic or probabilistic, we would not be able to say confidently that this is the same individual. There are no common attributes across the names, addresses, emails, or phones, which are one of the primary identifiers we use for identity resolution. So in this case, your MDM solution would probably say these are not a match, and you wouldn't be able to do anything with these records. And this is where Reltio Identity Builder really shines. So what is it? Reltio Identity Builder at its core is a identity resolution and enrichment capability that is available in Reltio Data Cloud. And its primary goal is to unify, those fragmented and stale customer records and enrich them to help you get a 360-degree view of your consumer. And we do this by combining our powerful data unification capabilities within the platform that you're already familiar with a proprietary consumer data set that includes, billions of verified data elements. So we have, 500 million plus individual records that are US consumer records or profiles. We have 600 million plus phone numbers spanning different types, 800 million plus email addresses that are linked to identities and households, and over a billion addresses, both current and historical, that span a 30-year history for these individuals. So what does Identity Builder do? How does this provide value? So if we take the previous example we were looking at, we had the three records A, B, and C. We have a Johnny Smith, a John Smith, Jon, and a John Smith, John. And we look at them in isolation like we did before. We understood that these are not a match and we cannot confidently say these are the same individual. But what if we had a robust profile that we can visualize here on the right, which is a reference profile, right? It's the profile we have inside the Identity Builder solution, which contains many data elements, right? It's that 360-degree profile. So here now, if we independently compare your source records, A, B, and C, we will see that we have matches to different data elements on this reference profile. So if I take a look at Johnny Smith, I'll see that Johnny Smith actually matched one of the names on file for this individual John Smith. And similarly, I'll see that I have a hit on the Florida address. Same thing with the Yahoo email address and the 786 number. So I've tried to color code these so that you can, follow across the two boxes. Independently to that, record B has also matched on one of the names, the New Jersey address and the phone number. And the third record, or record C, has also independently matched the same reference record. John Smith is his first name, and his business address seems like this person is a Reltian. So these three records have independently all matched or been resolved to the same profile in Identity Builder and hence identity. And therefore, we can now understand that these are in fact the same individual. So the outcome is that all three records would have independently matched the same Identity Builder profile and hence automatically been matched. And then depending on the thresholds, we can expose these as a potential match, or we can automatically merge them. I will show you in a demo the same example where the system will automatically merge these three records, and we can now confidently say that this is the same individual. So Identity Builder will help you resolve identities over time. It will improve your profile fill rates or backfill data for these sparsely populated records. It will result in higher match rates. So you have profile completion rates. We're seeing about 20 to 30% uplift in kind of limited testing, and overall about 6 to 9% in uplift to your identity consolidation rates. That's within your customer tenant, on top or over and above what you are already achieving through matching. So overall, we are boosting confidence, match confidence, and improving your data quality over time. So those three separate profiles that we looked at in the beginning, we can now visualize or look at a more complete picture here after identity resolution has been, identity builder has been activated or enabled in tenant, which includes the resolution piece, but also the enrichment piece. So here now we can see that we have a lot more data available for this individual using, you know, um, different identifiers that we had on file. So here now we can see a more complete profile for John Smith with some aliases or other names, a year of birth and a month of birth, a gender. We have multiple addresses on file, multiple emails on file. We have a household ID. I'll talk about that in a little bit. Phone numbers, also some web interests, and IP addresses that that individual has been kind of associated with. So overall, the benefits of Identity Builder, you're going to see profile completion rates improve. You're going to see your identity resolution or match rates also improve. Efficiencies, you're going to see reduced manual data stewardship and data stitching costs through intelligent automation. Fraud controls, we can help mitigate some fraud risks using some data elements we'll talk about in the next few slides. And overall, this helps you improve your customer experience, things like fueling prospect pipeline, improving segmentation, and your journey movement performance. But how does it all work? So behind the scenes, we are using a tried and tested technology. So we are leveraging a capability that's already pre-built and natively integrated into our platform and has been used successfully for many years with other solutions. Essentially, this data tenant subscription service allows us to subscribe customer tenants to a data tenant. And this allows sharing of data from this data tenant to the customer tenant. It can be a one-to-many type relationship, and the data is shared seamlessly without the need for any ETL design or any integration efforts. I won't dive into too much detail here. There's plenty of information on DTSS on our documentation portal that I invite you to take a look at. But what you need to know is that it's part of the platform, natively integrated, and it's all event-based and event-driven. So this makes the provisioning and enablement process very rapid and effortless. We can visualize this as a three-step process. The first step, provisioning, is that we will work with you to identify what matching strategies you want to enable, because we have multiple. So you'd pick something that covers your business requirements and your use cases, as well as the enrichment attributes that you would like to receive on your source records. So we have two convenient bundles to choose from. I'll cover that in a couple of slides. But just because you're licensed for 30 attributes, you only might be interested in 25 or 20. We can control that at the time of provisioning by simply creating a list of attributes you'd like to receive. So provisioning, pretty easy. We'll work with you to get that set up. Once the provisioning piece is done, we move on to the second step. There will be a one-time kind of process that needs to be run. It's a background job that will work on the data you already have in your customer tenant today. So it's a initial identity resolution and enrichment task. So your existing profiles and your customer tenant are all independently matched against the identity builder um, repository or data tenant, and then the results are brought into your customer tenant. So that was step two, and that's a one-time kind of activity. From that point onwards, it's business as usual. So at that point, any new or changed profiles in your customer tenant are continuously matched and enriched in real time by the platform. So there's no further input required from your end. In terms of matching strategies, we have created kind of a broad set of both deterministic and probabilistic rule sets that you can select. Um, for automatic rules, we're going with the first set of deterministic rules. These are primarily going to be based on having an exact first name and last name, and one of address, email, or phone. At least one, it could be more, but minimum of one, address, email, or phone. And the only difference here is I have a strategy that does not include uh, year of birth or month of birth information because that might not always be available. In that case, we have a slightly more relaxed rule that doesn't require year of birth or month of birth. So you can kind of pick one strategy that works for you. And then we would consider in an exact or null or exact or all null situation, middle names, suffixes, and genders where they are available. So now we can cast a slightly wider net using some probabilistic strategies. Here we're going to do something very similar to what we did with the first two strategies, except here now we're going to allow fuzzy first names to match, but keep that exact last name, at least one of address, email, or phone or more. And I have a strategy that includes that year of birth and month of birth. Um, and then the second one is very similar, or strategy four here. We're going to also consider fuzzy last names. So we'll do a fuzzy on the first name and last name, but we'll also keep that year of birth and month of birth in there. Um, we see that when using probabilistic strategies, you can't solely base it on names, emails, or phones. We'd like to keep some additional data elements in there for comparison purposes. But we also include middle names, suffixes, and genders. This helps cover use cases like parents and children that share the same first name, so there are generational differences there, and we can typically catch those using middle names and suffixes, as well as gender if it's available. So that covers it for the automatic match rules. When it comes to suspect match rules, we can cast an even broader net or slightly broader net. We'll deploy the same strategy here. We'll do a fuzzy first name, exact last name in strategy 5. With strategy 6, we're doing fuzzy first name and fuzzy last name. We still require one of address, email, or phone or more, and then we've included exact or null, year of birth and gender if available. Now, this may sound a little overwhelming. At the time of provisioning, we'll work with you to pick a strategy that meets your needs. Some of these might be too restrictive for your use case. Others might be too broad. We can calibrate that together as we provision the product for you. Okay, so let's talk about what data elements or attributes are available with this product. So the core demographic elements, we have name prefixes, first name, middle name or initial, last name, and name suffix. We have gender, year of birth, month of birth, estimated age of the individual, and the first seen and last seen timestamp. Now, these are part of the Enrich product. We also have a Enrich Plus product, so two convenient bundles for you to choose from. Enrich Plus contains everything that Enrich contains, but it contains additional premium data elements that can help you activate additional use cases and scenarios. So pick one that suits your needs. Enrich Plus here will, like I said, contain everything that Enrich does. So in addition to the data elements we just covered, you also get IP addresses that the individual is or has been associated with, websites that the individual has interacted or opted in some way, shape, or form, and a classification of that website. And then some of the more premium attributes here, we have a deceased indicator. This can help mitigate fraud risks. And we also have a household ID. So this entire data set has already been householded, and there is a household ID that's embedded within the data product. This can help you uncover linkages, in household members that you were not able to determine on your own before. In addition to the core set of attributes, there's also a list of other names that this person has been known to use. Very similar, prefix, first name, middle name, last name, suffix, and gender associated with that name. When it comes to addresses, we have core address information. This is standard with Enrich. In addition to the elements you're already familiar with, we have a first seen indicator, which is a timestamp for the first time the individual was seen at the address. And with Enrich Plus, we have some more premium markers or indicators typically associated with products like, or add-on products like CAS address verification. So we have things like the delivery point code, the DPV, the zip4 type, carrier route code, and the FIPS county code. In addition to that, we have the vacancy indicator, and more importantly, the last validated date. So when was it last validated that this particular individual resided at that address? That is, again, all part of Enrich Plus. With phone numbers, we have numbers and timestamps for first seen and last seen, as well as the phone type. That is standard with Enrich, and with Enrich Plus, we take this one step further. There is a confidence score, which reflects the frequency of a validation element. So when was it last validated that this number belonged to this individual? So here's a confidence score rating. We have line types for the different numbers, and then whether this is a direct in-dial number, the name of the original telco provider this number was associated with, and also the directory assistance code. That is part of Enrich Plus. With emails, we have a collection of emails and their types, as well as the first and last seen timestamps. And that covers it for attributes. So we can move forwards with the demo. And we can see this in action. So in this live demo, we're going to see the same kind of use case or example I presented before, but we're going to see this in Reltio Cloud. And we will see the before and then the after. So the before, I'll walk you through the three profiles we visualized earlier, and we'll see how they just live as singletons or no potential matches. And then once we enable Reltio Identity Builder, we'll be able to look at the results together. So here's that Johnny Smith that resides in Florida or has an address in Florida. We have a Yahoo email address and a 786 number. Separate to that, we had the profile for a John Smith that's based in New Jersey. There's no email on file, and has a 949 phone number. And then we have that third profile for John Smith with no address on file. We have a business address at Reltio. Looks like he's a Reltian, and no phone number. And I'm sorry, right? I clicked. Let me just bring you back here. Sorry, that shifted the slide. So here is where we will turn over the leaf. That's where Identity Builder has been deployed, and that initial match task was run. And from that point onwards, it's business as usual. So any net new, newly created or updated profiles would automatically match and merge without any further input. But in this case, here we've deployed the product and run that initial task. And on the dashboard screen, we can see some activity that's been happening here through the DTSS service. And we see that some profiles are matching and merging automatically here. So we can see some of that activity with Johnny Smith and John Smith. And now when we go back and refresh the page, or we navigate to one of these profiles before, we can now see that the profile A has been resolved. So these three identities have been resolved. We can look at this in the sources screen momentarily. But we can also see that we now have a complete picture for this individual, and that the identity has been resolved to be, in fact, the same individual. So here we can see a more complete profile. We have John R. Smith Jr., a number of aliases that he has used or other names. We have a year of birth and a month of birth, a gender, first seen and last seen. And then we have a collection of addresses, emails, and phones, as well as some web interests, household ID, and an IP address. And here I'll just walk through kind of some of these data elements and expand some of the email addresses so we can see a personal, a business, and another personal email address. In this case, we can see, a Gmail address that we didn't have on file. And here we see that the person used to have a Florida-based address that's now disconnected. We can see that we have the New Jersey number as well, where we have no recent validation on file. But now we see that there's a California-based number here, which has been recently verified. And in addition to that, we can see we used to have a Florida address, and the last time that individual was seen there was, say, back in '08. And then that individual seemingly moved to New Jersey between the years of '08 and '13. And the most recent address we have on file here is actually based in California, as at 2025. And if we go over to the sources view, we can now see the crosswalks. So I had three different records, from various systems. In this case, our CRM system. So they all had three, or they all had separate identifiers. They were different records in the beginning. So that's expressed through the crosswalk screen here and color coded. So it makes interpretation a little bit easier. But yeah, we had those three CRM records. And now here we can also see we have a fourth crosswalk here from an additional source. This is our Reltio Identity Builder data tenant that we spoke about earlier. And you will see that the additional information that was brought into the profile, so those enrichment attributes we spoke about, are associated with that Reltio Identity Builder crosswalk. So we have the governance and lineage aspects covered here too. And we can scroll down and visualize the same data elements, however, tied back to the appropriate source, which is, of course, Reltio Identity Builder. The activity log would show, similar types of events for matching and merging actions that have taken place, through the DTSS service, essentially caused by the Reltio Identity Builder product. All right. So in summary, in today's digital age, our empowered customers are becoming increasingly difficult to know and follow. In addition to that, data stewardship costs are rising, whilst governance pressures and fraud risks continue to increase. And at the same time, our businesses or organizations are demanding trusted consumer data so that they can operationalize, the correct information. But with the dawn of AI, agentic AI, and workflows, the demand for that trusted consumer data is never been higher. So with Reltio Identity Builder, you can bring clarity to this world of obscurity. You can boost your identity consolidation rates, increase your profile completion rates, boost confidence and trust in your consumer data, whilst mitigating fraud risks. And you can realize business benefits, things like fueling your prospective pipeline, activate segmentation, and customer experience journey movement performance increase. All right, so that was everything I had to cover. We can now open it up to some Q&A. Let's see. Okay, not
No
seeing much in
question.
the chat or any hands raised. Does anyone have anything I could clarify? Okay, so it's worth mentioning that this product is currently in early access. We are looking to make this generally available with our 2026.1 release, which is going to be available in April. We currently still have 2 seats available for early access. So if you are interested, please work with your Reltio account manager or customer success manager. The early access program can be or is available to you at no cost. We'd love to work with you and get your feedback, inputs on this product, and be able to measure, KPIs and success metrics. So if you're interested, again, please reach out and we'd be happy to work with you and include you in our EA program that should span through kind of the latter part of February, but also through the month of March. It's also worth pointing out that in its current state, we can only support AWS customers. We will have support for other clouds with our GA release. And this is only available to customers that are in the US and doing business in the US. So that's worth pointing out. Okay.
Does, does anyone have any further questions? I'll leave it open for another second or so. Okay. All right, go to the next slide, please, Jacques. So we can just go over some of this. So we do have a show that we're going to put up hopefully this week. It will be the first week of March. So that Wednesday, just like we usually do them on Wednesdays. The 2 weeks after that, on March 18th, we will have a community show that is led by um, Kim Toomey, who's one of our solution consultants, and she will be talking about building a system of context for AI and operations. So that one's pretty exciting. Prior to both of those, next week we have our data-driven event, which is in person in Florida and Orlando. If you happen to be able to go and haven't been able to register yet, you can register at that with that QR code. Our community members receive $400 off registration with the code community. So even if you're not technically a community member, but you are on this call and you happen to want to use that code, you can go ahead and use it. And then last, I we just launched our community survey, which is a survey to get your input. I would like to be using this to plan out the rest of this year. We do have our topics kind of laid out, but I want to know what you guys want to see. So please, please, please use the QR code there for that community survey. It is very short. It is only like 5 questions max. I actually made it much smaller than it was so that we could get through them quickly, get through those questions quickly. So I really would love your help, your support in doing that survey. And until next time, keep an eye out. I will be announcing that March show. It will be up on the front page of Community probably very shortly. So that's it.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you everybody for tuning in. We'll catch
Yeah,
you next time.
thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you next time.